Hello and welcome to our review for the 900 Global Zen Gold Label. Say that 10 times fast. The ZGL releases on July 28th with the Exponent. I also have a review up for that one if you're interested in it as well. Before we get started, big shout out and thanks as always to Royal Crest Lanes. They're a big part of bringing these videos to you. All it takes is a text and we have everything we need. Also, my code Rosdahl10 will get you 10% off your order at checkout at CoolWick. As you can see, we make slacks now and have shorts in addition. I'm wearing the Space Cat slacks that match the jersey, and if I have to actually wear pants to bowl in, I want them to be these. They're super light and comfortable. If you check the description, you'll find a bunch of helpful links and information, including our personal specs and a link to buy the ZGL at Bowler's Mart. I do receive a 5% commission on all sales through the link. To cover a few details, since you've seen two different lanes already, we got footage both on Kegel Chromium and on the house shot. Chromium is our typical test pattern, which is on lane 22. It comes in at 42 feet long, 25.5 mils, and just under a 7-to-1 ratio, so it's on the high side of medium for both length and volume, and is not as forgiving as a house pattern, but not as challenging as a sport pattern. The house shot on lane 20 is similar to Kegel's Easy Street, but with a bit more volume. More friction on the outside, more oil on the inside, but it's more challenging than most typical house shots. Strikes aren't as free here in League as they are at other places. My layout is 4.5 by 2. Remember, just two numbers because the PSA to PAP doesn't matter on a symmetric ball. This is my typical symmetric layout for balls that are under a 252-ish RG. It's fairly strong layout, but that helps blend out the left side for me. As usual, I changed the surface down to 1000 grit with Jayhawk Bowling Supply's Diamond Dust pads on a resurfacing machine, then finished it with a light coat of Step 2 to get some shine back on there without returning it to the full mirror shine of the gloss. Factory gloss isn't usually great for ball reaction, so fully resetting the surface or at least cracking the gloss with a pad to help break the ball in and make it more consistent is highly recommended. The Zen Gold Label, or ZGL as I'll be referring to it as, sees the return of the Meditate core from the other Zen releases, which comes in at a 249 RG and an 051 differential and 15 pounds. Their marketing line about the core is actually perfect, so I'm just going to drop that in here. Due to its massive size and readability, this single density symmetric core will not miss the spot as others can with skid flip bowling balls. The low RG, high differential symmetric core will perfectly even out the angularity of the cover. A lot of marketing buzz and nonsense gets thrown around with stuff, but this is the absolute truth and describes it perfectly. The cover is the new, or at least newly named 801 Reserve Blend Pearl. It's supposed to be cleaner and sharper than S77 that's on the original Zen, while still retaining the consistency and stability. I'll give you a minute to take a look on Chromium first, and then we'll talk reaction. Fair warning, if it's not already obvious, I heart this ball, I bought stock in Kool-Aid, and I'm happier than a teenage girl with Taylor Swift tickets. I'm still going to try to be objective, but there really aren't many cons to find here despite trying really hard to find some on some of these shots. To be quite honest, I drilled this ball because Angel hates the color purple, and even though I was expecting to not get along with it and didn't really want to drill it, I did because it's something everyone wants to see. I was just falling on my sword for y'all. Outside of filming the review, I never got along with the Zen, and the second one I drilled was the same story. Then I hated both Zen Masters I drilled, so I thought that core and I just weren't meant for each other, so I didn't drill a soul. because gingers obviously don't have those anyway, and that's just where I was going to leave it. Now we have the gold label, and the cover is obviously as advertised. It's definitely longer and sharper than the Zen, but just as stable and controllable. But what really gets me is that the ball shape is completely different. Both Zens and both Masters wanted to go forward on me. I understand part of that's the layout. It's a strong layout on a strong core, but I haven't had an issue with this layout on any other big symmetric ball, and this core in other Zen releases is somewhat forward rolling for everyone else anyway. Forward rolling balls always look awful for me because I have a somewhat forward rolling shot shape to begin with, #LeftyLife, so I don't need any help getting a ball to roll out in flat 7. This ball, however, is not remotely forward rolling. To get to the point after all the monologuing, it feels like a dark code crossed with a fate. It's got dark code roll, but not the tendency to be super early and give up, and it also has fate roll, but without its tendency to be a little long and wiggly. It's got the Zen stability, a super heavy mid lane roll without chugging, but then instead of slowing down and being forward, it pushes a couple extra feet and then plows through the deck. It's a very energetic reaction. Other people have mentioned Rubicon UC2, and I can see that as well as far as the shape. It's just definitely stronger than that. Moving on to the house shot, similar story, just more hook. What I really wasn't expecting is how clean it still is, and that's a big clue for me on what the cover actually is. It reacts virtually the same on the house shot as it did on Chromium, and there are only a handful of balls that have done that for me. The Dark Code, the Fate, the Night Road, the Infinite Physics, and the Idle Cosmos. If 801 Reserve Blend Pearl isn't actually REX, I'll eat a bucket of the worst stuff they ever had on Fear Factor. The last several balls I've been excited about, namely the Duo and Summit lately, have looked great while filming and then just have been too strong for the house shot. The Absolute was somewhat tame on Chromium and an absolute monster with a little more friction. Meanwhile, it's hard to tell whether I'm on Chromium or the house shot when I'm throwing the Fate or the Cosmos, as I do quite often. The Dark Code ended up just being too early for me as well, but same story there. Little stronger on the house shot, but not nearly the difference I see from virtually everything else. I do really like the new naming convention for the covers. It seems like they're going with a craft beer or top shelf whiskey kind of vibe, and I think taking the craft kind of brand identity is a great direction for a company that has seemed to lack any real identity previously. A little more volume in the middle on the house shot than on Chromium, so at 4th arrow I had to slow it down a little to get it to corner here at the end, but the ball still looks amazing across the lane and did whatever I asked it to. I did get lane level footage to compare to my original Zen. I know that's what you're all here to see, so take a look at the Zen first, and then I'll mix the ZGL in and we'll talk more. I think you can see why I'd have been encouraged about the Zen after filming this, and also why I was encouraged to start wearing slacks for reviews. You'll get a good look at the new Space Cat pants here too, looking at the ZGL shots, shameless plug. The Zen came out before Storm and Roto staffers were allowed to throw global, and by the time we were able to, I thought its time had passed, so I left it alone. But then it took off, and as soon as production caught up with demand, I got one to see what all the hype was about. It seemed to live up to it initially, obviously looked incredible for the review, but after that I couldn't ever get it to match up on anything. It was so early and strong that it forced me inside to get it down the lane, then it wouldn't make the corner. It was a flat 7 or big 4 look on virtually everything. I drilled a new one with a different layout, same story, put different layouts on 2 different Zen Masters and they both did the same thing. When you can see them side by side now, the OG and Gold Label don't seem related. Typically, you can at least recognize the shape the core creates, even with quite different cover formulas. The Halo and Halo Pearl both felt like Halos, same with the Idle and Idle Pearl, RSTX1 and X2, etc. The good news is that if you're like me and never got along with the original, there's obviously no reason to worry here. The other good news is that if you already have a Zen or 10 already, you don't have to worry about overlap. Yet more good news is that if you're looking for a Zen replacement but want something fresh, while this is definitely a different spin on it, it features all the trademarks of the Zen, but in a dramatically upgraded package, in my opinion. It has all the pros with zero of the cons. The Zen consistently wants to straighten out. It will continue, but I needed to make sure I got around it. but also while trying to keep it from digging in too early. The ZGL, I have control over the shape without such a severe difference in ball reaction depending on what I do with my hand. If I get behind it, it'll go more forward but without straightening out, but it'll also continue with a small adjustment too. It won't get super early if I get around it, but it also won't give up if I get more up the back of it. I think they're fairly equal on friction response. The ZGL looks pretty quick until you get down on the lane level, and it looks punchy but pretty smooth and round. The Zen is a little more defined, but it's always been in a fairly perfect spot from a friction response perspective, which is what makes it so forgiving for most, and I think the ZGL has retained that same characteristic. It's smooth enough to hold on misses in, and sharp enough to get back from misses out. I'll have plenty of comparisons coming. I hope. I keep promising that and getting busy, but there's all kinds of stuff I want to take a look at, all kinds of great stuff that just came out, and all kinds of great stuff that's about to come out. There are a lot of balls in this general zone, and with as good as the Duo and Summit are, we'll have to take a look to help you sort it all out. One thing is for sure though, this is the new daddy ball that'll have your competitors crying for their mommies. Global can just go on ahead and discontinue the OG now as far as I'm concerned. There's not a single thing the Zen does that the ZGL doesn't also do or do better. Remember that release day is July 28th. It's dropping with the Exponent. That video is linked at the end of this one in the More Videos box. Down in the description is a link to Bowler's Mart that will get one ordered for you, and of course don't forget my code Rosdahl10 to get 10% off your order at checkout at CoolWick. Thanks for watching, and may the strikes be with you.